welcome back to another week of Real Biz Talk podcast. My name is Rachel Brinke, and I am joined with someone that I absolutely love following online. I know I feel like I say that a lot with my guests, but that's where I find them. I get inspired by other entrepreneurs, specifically female entrepreneurs. And if you know my story, you know that I have a lot of ups and downs, and I'm all about figuring out how to do life and do business in the circumstances that you have. And our guest today is one that I think can really bring some of that insight to the table, because I know many of you are also struggling with different things in life, as we all kind of have on different levels in the last few years with pandemic and otherwise. So Carmeon, welcome. I'm excited to have you.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
I really want to express my appreciation, y'all. We're going to get into the whole story, but Carmeon is carving out really, really busy time, as you're going to see. You probably recognize her from HGTV's Next Design Star winner, but that's not where your entrepreneurship journey started. Let's go back to the beginning to kind of how you got into this, everything.
Yes, no, that is HGTV came way later in the entrepreneurial journey. And actually, my entrepreneurial journey started kind of by happenstance. I am one of very few people in my family. I want to say I'm the first, but I don't like for my cousins to then like listen to my podcasts and things to go like, no, wait a minute. But I am the first entrepreneur in my family. I was a student that did great in school, got an academic scholarship, chose the college that I went to be a physical therapist, ultimately changed my major to interior design, which I didn't even know existed as a career until college. But my parents just instilled in me, you make good grades, you go to college, you get a good job. And that good job is doctor, lawyer, accountant, teacher, along those lines.
And that's the options, and that's kind of all you know.
And that's all you know. So, of course, college really opened my eyes to all the possibilities of careers, but never really considered the creative space, which I think interior design is. But, of course, as you get into it, it's a lot more technical than that. But stumbled into the interior design space, and my first job out of interior design school was being a junior designer for a healthcare company. So I've been corporate from the beginning. I graduated, and 2 weeks later, I started for a healthcare company designing nursing homes, hospitals, physical therapy clinics, and I did that for almost 5 years.
See, that's something you don't even think about, that you would need someone, like you just show up at the hospital to get your blood drawn and everything exists. That's cool.
Exactly. It's funny because it takes becoming an interior designer when you walk into a space and go, every space that we are in, someone made a decision about what color is on the wall, who chose this art, how high to hang it, all of those things. Someone made those decisions. So there's someone behind the scenes somewhere making decisions about all of the environments that we exist in. So yes, hospitals and all, there's someone, hopefully a professional interior designer in places like hospitals are making those decisions.
Let me ask you this. Do your friends ever like take pictures of a hospital space or another location? They're like, what was this designer thinking? And they send that to you?
My friends do not do that. Thankfully, they allow me to turn off my career brain. I also don't judge spaces that I don't have anything to do with, because ultimately you don't know where someone's inspiration came from, what their backgrounds are. Everyone has a great reason for choosing what they choose.
Well, good. Don't judge my background here. I'm not like 6 inches between the things. It's just what it is.
I don't judge whatsoever. Unless I'm asked. I mean, you as a designer, you get hired to consult and redesign. So of course I go into those spaces very proactively and with a positive mindset for the people that own them, and give them my best effort to give them the space that they're envisioning, even if they couldn't do it themselves. So yeah, I don't judge, but there's a time and place for that.
But that's being an expert. You're talking to someone who's a lawyer in one of my businesses. People don't like me when they hear lawyer, but it is my job to judge, not negatively, right?
Indeed.
But I am ripping things apart. So I get that whole vibe.
Yes. So yeah, I started out in healthcare design. I then moved into the retail space. I sold furniture. I was a design consultant for a couple furniture brands. And then I moved into merchandising and I became a buyer. So I've worked for other companies for 10 years, 10
Mm-hmm.
plus years after college. But it was during I was laid off from that healthcare company and had about a year in between jobs. And in that time, I taught myself how to sew and build furniture. And my husband and I had just gotten married, and we moved to the middle of nowhere, and there were no furniture stores or design shops to buy from. So I made a lot of everything in our home, and of course documented it because I was a blogger. I'm an OG blogger, been blogging for 13 years. And so that's how my life in the digital space started. Started with a blog, and then Instagram came along, and we all kind of know how that's gone.
Yeah.
But in that layoff period, my husband, I guess when my severance package ran out, he was like, okay, time
you gonna do?
Exactly. That was his question. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And he said, you've done all this work. You've picked up all these skills. People are already asking you to do this for them. Why don't you just start your own design business? And at the time, neither of us knew anything about starting a business. And it was really, he did a ton of research. I went off of gut that quite didn't work out all the time. We didn't see eye to eye.
Mindset right there.
But my design business, Nubi Interiors, was birthed in the middle of me not having a job and trying to make money for my family. It was short-lived because I knew nothing about getting a design business off the ground. My husband told me to go put flyers on people's cars and parking lots, and I was like, absolutely not. That's not the type of business
that's what Instagram's
for. So yeah, I ultimately just went and found a job, which is where the furniture retailers came in. But those clients that came in and doing outside jobs for those furniture stores, we would sponsor events and houses like the St. Jude Dream Home and things like that. So I would get to specify all the furniture that goes into the dream home, and people would see my work and then ask me to do projects for them. And so that's ultimately how my business grew. It came from the work that I was doing corporately, but also sharing that work on my social media and things like that. So yeah, the first couple of years of entrepreneurship were just trying to figure it out. It was not pretty. I took on a client where we did not go through my normal intake process, and I didn't have her sign a contract, and I ended up in court for 4 months because she tried to sue me over the color navy blue. Thankfully, there are no laws or regulations against colors in the interior design space
yet.
So exactly. It's a little difficult to do when art and design is so subjective, but she did try to sue me and tell me I did my job wrong when she had a completed project. So yeah, that definitely steered me far, far away from entrepreneurship. I said, I will absolutely never take another client again. I'll just stick to my corporate job. But it was working on my own home and being a part of the social media space that got me the attention of casting producers and also people that saw what I did, me putting myself out there as myself and my design style. People really understood who I was as a designer, my perspective when it came to design. And so the people that hired me for what I did, not necessarily what I could do for them. They wanted me and my expertise. So I didn't run into those issues anymore after that one client. Also really nailed down my business practices after that.
I didn't pay Carmeon to say all this. I didn't give her a script. This is going to be the clip that I probably use because you guys know I love legal and business stuff.
Legal and business.
One of my questions, like, did you have issues, legal and any part of this? And to have it early on, I don't know if it's better than when it's later, right? When you have a smaller following and it almost feels like you quote unquote have less to lose.
Less to lose.
Yes. Maybe.
There's definitely something to that. Mine was very early on. Also, I felt like I was intelligent enough to know that I didn't do the job wrong. I knew exactly what I did wrong, and it was not having those protections in place for myself. Like the contracts are to protect us and our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that would have been spearheaded from the beginning had I just had her look over the contract. And everything would have been fine. But understanding and having a front row seat to what happens when you don't follow your process and stick to the protections that you put in place. Oh yeah, that's an easy way for you to stay in line and not get it wrong in the future.
Well, not even the legal side of things. I see sometimes even with other people that are friends of mine or family, and even if I'm paying them full price for a service, sometimes they'll want to, and I've done this also with some of my clients who are friends, I'll be like, oh, let's just shortcut the intake process. We'll just do it this way. But then they're not getting the continuity of everything, and they're not seeing the value in all those well-oiled processes. And so you think you're giving them white glove, and they're actually getting a latex glove kind of service. Not that you were doing that, but I know for us, a lot of information gets missed if you don't follow the processes.
Exactly.
So did you, I guess now that we're talking about the legal stuff, one of the questions I had with you having a lot of corporate experience and doing the design work at hospitals, et cetera, how much, and you can share publicly or not, we can always cut it out. Do you feel like you learned a lot about business or more just about design in the corporate space?
I definitely learned more about the interior design industry in the corporate space. There's nothing that teaches you about how to run a business except maybe business courses in college or somewhere else besides actually having a business. There's so many things you don't really understand until they happen. I've had my business for 8 years. Nubi Interiors is 10 years old now, 8, 9, somewhere in there. I've lost count. And I've started multiple businesses since then, but there are still things that I'm learning every day. Their taxes are different for different types of businesses, and you need different types of attorneys depending on what type of business you're in. I have a contract attorney. I have a business attorney. I have an entertainment attorney. Like there's all different types of lawyers that exist. And you need the expertise of multiple entities to make sure that you're protected and make sure that your business is legal and in good standing so that you can continue to do business. But there's so much that you just don't know until the opportunity presents itself. And I've learned everything that I know about business from having businesses, not necessarily from watching them.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really great point. I've shared before on my podcast, I have my MBA and I got it while I was building my first business. And it took years, call me a slow learner, or if it's truth, it took me years till I finally went, oh, everything I learned in classes makes sense because it's different learning it in a textbook, and then doing it in practice. So I really enjoy the entrepreneurship journeys where you didn't fall into a family business that already existed. Not that that's not difficult, or didn't have the business background, or that people get frustrated and worried. I don't have a business degree. It's okay.
Right. It's perfectly okay. Thankfully, Google is your best friend. If you can't interpret Google, you can at least find the information of people that know what they're doing. Find a lawyer. And thankfully, those types of businesses, people like lawyers and accountants, they provide guidance before you even pay them. They let you know what kind of services they provide and if they are the proper entity for you to pay to do anything. So it's always, I've learned to just ask the question. Ask the question, are you the person that can help me do X, Y, and Z? And that has gotten me further than the interior design degree that I have in my pocket. So.
Well, we have in the audience, one thing I didn't share with you before we got on, part of the demographics of those that listen are creatives, because I do a lot of work with photographers, wedding planners, and things like that. So it's a heavy creative industry. And that's one of the biggest struggles. I don't even know what to ask. And I'm like, well, you just sit down and I want to hear from you. Like, what are the friction points that you're having? Let's put all legal stuff aside. Like, what are friction points that the clients are asking? Or what are issues, like you mentioned, that you've had happen? And so that really is a good way. If you just start and make a list of the questions you may have, or just where you are feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, finding a good attorney or even a business coach to help pick through that will be really, really helpful.
Yes, 100% agree.
All right, so we're at Nubi Interiors is created. Where are we at after that in the timeline of your journey here?
So Nubi Interiors is created. It's probably been in existence about 5 years before I leave my corporate job. So
Okay.
I am in a position back in 2019 where my design business and my life and career online as an influencer had picked up a great deal. My follower count had grown. My website was doing amazingly. I was getting the attention of brands where I'm doing sponsored content, which especially now makes lots of great money. And my corporate job, even though I was putting in 60 hours a week for that job, my boss at the time felt like I wasn't giving enough. He felt like I had one foot in and one foot out and wasn't fully committed because he could also see my life outside of work growing and flourishing and doing well. So I was put in a position to choose myself or working corporately. So I ended up having to quit that job. And once I quit that job, I did have a business coach, a strategy coach at the time that I had been working with. We had prepared for me to leave my job, about a year out, and it ended up being 4 months. So, so we had a bit of an expedited process. But once I left my corporate job, I had already had clients for about 5 years. I knew what I wanted to do and how my business was run already. So it was at that point where I just opened up the floodgates to take on more clients. I had the availability to take on more clients. And so my business was pretty much ready to go. But what the pivotal moment of my career and my business growth was up until March of 2020, I had truly only worked with local clients. And the first week of March, I decided to take my business virtual. And a week later, the world shut down. So
you had
my
a crystal
timing,
ball or something.
I did. My timing was impeccable. So my business tripled within 3 months after the pandemic. It was insane. And at the time, I had already had processes in place. I could digitally intake new clients. I could set up an immediate waiting list. So things were just going really well. And at the same time that my business grew, I was reached out to by a casting director for Design Star. I didn't know that at the time. I thought it was a different type of show. I didn't find out until much later that it was a competition show. But my business grew and I was getting noticed by production companies at the same time. I'd been in talks with production companies for probably 2 years before then, but nothing had ever come of it. And I was actually a little bit exhausted of the process and had given up on it until this very persistent casting producer reached out to me and friends of mine and found my email and my phone number eventually because it started with the DM on. Oh yeah. Like, do you know this person? Someone has reached out to me. They're looking for you. They wanted you to know that it's real. Take them seriously. Reach out to them yes. Like he had gone around like, please tell her we're serious.
I don't know whether to applaud or to recommend like a restraining order.
We'll go with applaud in this scenario.
Yeah, it's turned out well so far.
It turned out well. So yes, my business exploded right before shooting the show for Design Star, which was at the end of 2020. And then 2021 was the premiere. Everyone saw that I won. I won my own show and $50,000 after winning Design Star. And so I got to bring production here to Memphis and create a show here around the city I love, doing things for renters, which was not part of the content library for HGTV or Discovery Plus at the time. So it was really exciting. So of course, being in a niche market for an already niche opportunity, you're a designer on TV. I garnered a ton of popularity online. People were really excited considering over half of the country rents now. So it was a ton of what do you call it? A ton of kismet. Like everything that was wonderful that could have happened to me happened, in every aspect of the word. And everything was wonderful up until it was time for my show to premiere. And right before my show premiered, tragically, I lost my husband. And I am one of those people that believes everything happens for a reason, even though it's as cliche as it is. I believe it's true. Things that have happened, if you look back on everything that's happened in your life, it's gotten you to the point where you are, whether it's good or bad. And up until that point, I'd had a ton of great things happen in my life, and had already suffered a ton of loss up until that point. I had lost my mother to breast cancer, her mother, my grandmother, to breast cancer as well, in the years of my career. So I was no stranger to loss, but it's very different losing someone that you are literally entangled with on a day-to-day basis. And I lost my husband 3 weeks before the premiere of my show. His memorial service was the week before my show premiered. So I missed out on any opportunity to promote it. But the tragedy of losing my husband was what promoted my show. I was the girl that won Design Star that had a new show coming out, but her husband passed away. So it was a very,
I don't even know how to define that.
I don't have, I still to this day don't know how to define that time. I felt guilty at the time. It felt as if, and it wasn't anything, of course, that I was doing on my own. But to have the world inquire about who you are because of your loss it almost feels, I don't know. It's not the happiest feeling, and it's not the most settling feeling either. But knowing who my husband was, he was my biggest supporter. I mean, I met him in college right when I changed my major from physical therapy to interior design. Actually, I met him the day after I changed my major from physical therapy to interior design. And he told me in college, he sat with me while I was working on a project. He was like, "You're going to be a star one day." And he told me from the beginning. Look at that. From the beginning. So he's the reason I started my business. He's the reason I competed on Design Star. He had to convince me to go. So he was my biggest supporter and saw something in me from the beginning. And he always told me I would be a star. And so for him to be the vehicle that got me to that position, and then for him to be pulled away from me, was soul crushing. But I also knew, I felt like his purpose was to get me to that point, and he succeeded. And so his job was done. And so I now have the responsibility of honoring him by doing exactly what he said I would do: be a star, be great, and do what I'm capable of when it comes to my career and changing the lives of the people that I touch. And now he is heavily part of that story, my story, which now I have another reason to talk to people and connect on a human level beyond just having a business. So, so yeah, the tragedies of life are one thing, but they are part of our lives, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, and they're part of our stories. So you have to fold that into whatever it is that fuels you to be an entrepreneur. And that's what I do.
I don't know if it's of any comfort. I didn't really realize how ingrained his passing was with the story and the timeline. When I first found you, I didn't have any idea about that. I was attracted to the vibe and the presence and how you show up. And then obviously I ended up finding that. But I think that you are fulfilling the purpose there, right? You're doing it even if you aren't saying, "Hey, I'm here because of him," or if it's connected to that, it's still shining through. One thing that comes up for me, because I have had my own struggles, my audience knows I've had cancer, chronic illness. What did you feel appreciative? I don't know if that's the right word. How did you feel business-wise, facing the business at that time, knowing that the whole world has been basically, rug pulled out from under you? Was there a moment that you're like, oh, I'm thankful I put this into place? I mean, we could even take it back away from his passing. We could take it to that first month of pandemic in March. I know for me, when everything shut down and everyone's running around, like craziness, trying to get their stuff up and going, we were already digital. We were already virtual. So it really wasn't much of a hiccup. And I felt appreciation in that moment. Did you feel that within pandemic and also during the time of his passing that you already had your business established?
Absolutely. I had to put my business on pause to go shoot Design Star. And I had set up my website to still capture client information, put them on the waiting list. They could go ahead and put in intake information. So my business was still going, even when I couldn't work in my business. And basically the same thing happened after losing my husband. I had to shut down. I wasn't necessarily working with clients at the time, but I had hired a new assistant to help me channel or manage all of the communication that was coming in. And at that point, I had someone who was a barrier and almost a level of protection at the time. So people they could still have access to business Carmeon without necessarily having access to Carmeon herself. So things were still going. But of course, at that time, the human element of everyone came out. And so there was very little, if anything, being asked of me for a really long time after losing my husband. But all of the things that I had put in place prior to, all of the relationships that I had built over time, everyone was ready to work with me when it was time for me to work again.
That's good.
So it is a matter of putting systems and processes in place, but it's also a matter of how you carry yourself as an entrepreneur and a business person or a leader, and those personal connections you make with brands and clients and all of those things, those people being willing to wait for you, waiting on the opportunity to work with you. So yes, in multiple ways, I was very grateful for what had been put in place.
I mean, of course, we don't ever want anything like that to happen, but we're still existing. We still have to carry on. And I would hope that it would be more of a support. Wasn't going to say easier, but more of a support knowing you had that in place. What I'm getting at with this is that I try to talk a lot, especially with newer entrepreneurs. And even with like when you were talking about, I thought I had a year left in my corporate job until I was going to leave. And then, going digital the week before pandemic, we had no clue that was happening. And then your husband, it's really important for us to look forward as entrepreneurs because you just have no idea what is going to come down the pipeline, and you can plan everything out to a T. And I know that that's kind of difficult, especially if you're newer in business, baptism by fire, trying to figure all this shit out.
Of course.
But it is really, I know for me, like when I had struggles, what you were just talking about, I got really warmed at the heart because I was thinking about my team who will end up watching this when they're editing. But when I had something happen back in 2020, I didn't have to touch anything for like a month. And because I had built such a good culture and team and I love them, and I guess obviously they love me, it was like you, I had a level of protection. They were able to do the things that were needed. Now, I didn't have that back when I had cancer back in 17 years ago, but that was a lesson I had learned then. I was like, I need someone to be able to do this for me. I can't be laying coming out of surgery from cancer and answering client emails.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you so much. Real Biz Talk, the whole goal of this podcast is for us to be vulnerable and open. So I do appreciate that. Where in the timeline? So we're after HGTV's new Design Star. What came after that? You said you did the rental designs, and then you also got your own show. Was that one and the same?
Yes, one and the same. Yes. So I got my own show. That show was Reno My Rental.
Oh, yeah.
And that premiered at the end of 2021 and did amazingly well. It streamed on Discovery Plus for 3 months before it premiered on HGTV in January of 2022 or February 2022. I love the show. It's a quick watch. It's 6 episodes, 30 minutes. It's super fun, packed with inspiration. But we were waiting to hear if we would get a season 2. And in the midst of waiting, 2 months after my show premiered, Discovery merged with Time Warner,
Oh, yeah.
Warner Brothers. And so the show got caught up in the merger. And of course, in mergers, people are trying to figure out what's up and down, who's tackling what. Do I still have a job? Where is our office? Like all of those things. And so they put a lot of decision making on hold. And part of that is Reno, my rental, going to get a season 2? Fortunately, I've garnered enough online notoriety.
You have, girl. Be proud of it. You have.
I mean, I guess so.
So you deserve the accolades.
I have done the work. So yes, my online presence, especially on Instagram, is what has carried me. No matter if I'm taking on clients or I'm shooting a TV show, there are brands that want to work with me and utilize my channels and my voice to promote their products and all of those things. So my life as an influencer has never dwindled per se. So that's been my mainstream of income over the last 2 years. But something that came up in 2022, I had several entities and organizations and companies and clubs and groups. Everyone wanted me to come and speak. So I developed an entirely new stream of income, making appearances and speaking to audiences. And I was being flown all over the country. By the end of last year, I had 34 speaking engagements, a majority of which were away from Memphis. So I traveled a ton in the year of 2022. So that was a part of my business I did not expect, because they weren't just asking me to come and talk about interior design. Most entities wanted me to come just tell my story. And that's something you don't plan for. All of us have a story. But apparently mine was interesting enough to be flown around the country to tell to audiences, to inspire. And that was something I tried to do on a day-to-day basis every day anyway through interior design. My philosophy is just getting people to see the beauty that surrounds them every day. You don't necessarily have to go spend $1 million to have beautiful things. It's the way you look at them now. And that's the way I approach life. It's how you look at your life. And your life can be beautiful depending on your perception. And that has carried through with me after losing my husband and living since then. My husband was really huge on just living out loud, just existing, and loving the life that you live. And that's what I've maintained. And that's the message that I've carried and facilitated to multiple groups all around the country and in my online career every day. So no interior design clients, still lots of brand partnerships, but speaking, talking was a business stream of revenue for me last year, and it's continuing this year as well. So yeah, that brings us to current day, where at the Christmas of last year, I got to announce, I still don't know if Reno My Rental is coming back. It's still potentially caught in the merger. We may or may not hear from
Before
Discovery.
You announce, I need like a little drum roll sound.
Okay,
if y'all can edit that in for us in post, that would be great. Because I already know what you're about to share. I'm excited.
Pating. But yes, I got to announce on Christmas Day, I am shooting another show. I have an entirely new show that will be coming to HGTV. And this time I am working with homeowners, essentially doing what I did with renters, getting renters to understand just because you don't own your home, you can make this space look and feel like you. But of course, you realize there are homeowners that live in their homes and still don't take the time to make their spaces look and feel like them.
I volunteer to distribute if you need somebody.
So my new show, we start production in February. Very excited. It's still based here in Memphis, which is a huge part of my life and one of the loves of my life. I do whatever I can to promote the city. And so making sure that I'm bringing production to the city, we get to hire people. So we have an economic boost in the city in some way. Anything I can to help Memphis, I will absolutely do. Okay. So yes, I am coming back to TV in a big way, in a big way. And so that's where we are today. And secondly, I am writing a book as well. So I am hoping, it's very likely it could, I mean, depending on the entities that be, I could have a new show and a book releasing around the same time, which is insane to even say out loud. But I'm so excited to have two major vehicles to express not just who I am, but my philosophies on life and design, and share that with the world ultimately.
I love this. And really your whole story, I mean, there's so many pieces that I love, but it's the multi-passionate type of things that have come out, things you didn't know you'd be interested in doing, like speaking, etc. Because I always try to tell entrepreneurs, and I was one of these in the beginning. I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's it. And I wasn't really open to the opportunities. And I look back, I'm like, goodness gracious, but it's being open to, you don't know where it'll go. And then the other side of it, you keep mentioning revenue streams. Having different revenue streams is incredibly important because we saw with pandemic, what if you were a brick and mortar? You were done for how many months or years, depending on where you lived.
Right.
And so I think that's wonderful. You're a good embodiment of the entrepreneurial spirit, not just the inspiration, but also the tangible implementation of getting, seizing these opportunities, going for them, and having multiple to support you. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So new show, new book. Is there anything, I know I want you all to go to Carmeon's Instagram. Love it. Hit it up almost every day. That's the central place. Is there anywhere else that they can check you out?
Yes. So yes, check out my Instagram account. I am at Carmeon Hamilton on Instagram. That's essentially where I live. You want to know where I am at any given point, just check my Instagram account.
Okay, stalkers, now they'll know.
Yes, I've had to be very careful about that. I used to post in real time, and now it's a little delayed, but you get to see where I've been that day. But CarmeonHamilton.com is the all-encompassing of my brand. So you still get Instagram from my website. You get everything on how to contact me, my portfolio, brands that I've worked with, happenings that are on my blog. My blog is still alive and well. I don't post on it as often as I'm supposed to. That's going to change this year because I've put more systems in place. Hired a digital strategist.
You're never going to take my blog away from me. Even if I'm putting a video on the blog, there will be a blog.
There will be a blog. There will always be a blog. I learned very early on in the beginning to have a platform that is yours because you can't necessarily put all of your eggs in a basket that you can't control. So Instagram can go away in a day. The internet could go away in a day, actually, thankfully.
Hopefully
there's
not.
Lots of things. Yeah, hopefully not. But there's lots of stuff in place to make sure that doesn't happen. But in the instance, social media isn't a thing. CarmeonHamilton.com still exists. So I have a newsletter that you can sign up for. Getting better. Looking at my team now.
Girl, it's a process.
It is all very much a process. But yes, it's the problem of having too much to talk about and not having the time to write it out and get it out there. So we're working on it. So
no,
it's a good problem to have.
My team probably hates this. I do audio messages until the cows come home. That's all day. And so because I can talk fast, I can get my thoughts out, and then I can
talk way faster than I can type.
Yeah. Yes. They're probably on the other side going, oh God.
But yes, CarmeonHamilton.com is where you can keep up with me, and Instagram, I'm at Carmeon Hamilton. If you want a little piece of Carmeon Hamilton, I have a furniture collection with Tav Furniture. TOV Furniture. You can find it. It is the Voice Collection through Tav Furniture. I and 5 other Black interior designers were convened as Avengers of sorts to design a collection for Tav in 2021. And that collection is now live and available. A couple of my pieces have sold out already, but they are restocking and available very soon. But I am very proud of the furniture collection and am in love with my pieces specifically. And I think you guys would like them too. But more to come on product and things like that by me as well.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, this is not going to be the end or the last that we're going to hear from you. I really do appreciate your time. Extremely valuable. You have a lot going on. Guys, I'm going to stick everything, and gals, I'm going to stick everything into the show notes as always, and in the Facebook group, Real Biz Talk Podcast with Rachel Branke. Also, we'll have a thread specific of Carmeon. I'll put all the links there to all the things we talked about. I don't know the timing and when we're going to publish this, but when the book comes out and the new show, we'll get those links so that you guys can just go right through. And Carmeon, again, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing all the new stuff coming down the pipeline.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking with you and sharing the lives and likenesses of being an entrepreneur in the world today. So,
and you know what? I'm sure that we could do 15 other episodes and we wouldn't even touch the surface, but there's so many good nuggets in here. So listeners, I'm going to get the team to dig in, pull them out. There were so many while we were sitting here that I couldn't even address because we wanted to try to keep it relatively short for you. But thank you, Carmeon. And guys and gals, I got to get out of that. Friends, I will see you guys. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Friends, I will see you in the Facebook group and on the Facebook page, Rachel Branke. See y'all next week.